Welcome out, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting started here today with Leadership in 3D. We're going to be starting here just a little bit late. We're just getting a few things ironed out with technology. It's just what we get to do. It's a new platform, and I want to familiarize y'all with this here in a moment. For right now, make sure that you can hear my voice. Now, why would I be pointing my lips if you can hear my voice? It's for those who aren't hearing my voice right now. So once again, if you can hear my voice, then you're good. If not, you're going to want to test your audio by clicking the gear icon once again. And please tell us where you're coming in from. Share your name and the location where you're at. Off to the right-hand side, there we go, right-hand side, you should see a chat window that will tell us a little bit of where you're from. So it looks like we have someone coming in from Draper. Carla, welcome. Emily, coming in from your bedroom, thank you. Where's your bedroom located? I'm certain we're going to be on a long road here if I keep asking questions. But Rob from Saratoga Springs, welcome out to Leadership in 3D. Draper, hello. Thank you, Marissa. It's so good to have you here. From Michigan, David. Thank you, David, for logging in. This is a great time for you to grab a pencil and paper. We're going to get started here momentarily. I've got my guest presenters here logged in. We've got Tace from Idaho. Welcome back. It's good to hear you from Idaho. Cody, welcome in from Draper. Love it. Love having you on. John, Saratoga Springs, the businessman. Love that. Thank you. Once again, today you're going to want to grab a pen and a paper and be ready to write down some great notes. I've brought on two phenomenal guests to share a little bit of the inside secrets of what it's like to be an executive coach. Executives have coaches? They should have it all figured out, right? No, the best of the best, in any kind of arena in sports arena need coaches, right? So this is where I love to be able to give you an inside scoop of some of the hints and tips and the things that accelerate those who have the mantle of leadership on their shoulders, and you get to do it for free of charge. This is awesome. Right, so Tyler's coming in from West Jordan. Welcome, Tyler and M. Well, awesome. I was like T and M. Oh, I got it. Jeff from West Jordan. Lovely. I love it. I hope some of you are logging in from your patios, enjoying the beautiful heat from wherever you're from. So with that in mind, again, I want to welcome you to Leadership in 3D. It's an opportunity for me to gather specialists, experts in given fields to share with you in 10 minutes. Each one of them have 10 minutes to share 3 key tips and hints that will help you to elevate your leadership in your life, no matter what your role might be. So today's, again, the theme is focused in on executive coaching, executive coaches that work with their top paying clients to help them to lighten their load, to lighten their responsibilities, to help them to shape their perspective in a way that will help them to lead companies and organizations to greater levels of productivity and profitability. And this is a gift and an opportunity I wanted to share with each and every one of you. So let's go ahead and get started. Masami, welcome in from Mill Creek. So I spent my honeymoon in New York City, the city that never sleeps, right? But it's the city that has this beautiful icon, the Statue of Liberty here. As a postcard, a souvenir, if you will, which, by the way, souvenir in French means to remember. So why would I go to all of the energy to buy a postcard for $4 when I know what the Statue of Liberty looks like? Well, I want to actually remember. I want to remember the whole event itself. And this is an icon here. This is an icon for us in the United States, a symbol of freedom, a symbol of unity, a symbol of hope, out there in the ocean. And it was a beautiful opportunity to see this, and especially to take this little icon home with me. Now, this is what I hope for you in Leadership in 3D is an opportunity for you to sidestep the stresses of daily life. I don't know if any of you have experienced this thing called stress lately. But when stress happens, we go into survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, our brain will just focus in on the problem at hand and forgets, a lot of the times, all of the tools. We go into a state of fear and we forget everything and run, And so my hope here is that we can take this little emblem of hope, of freedom and unity, and we can help remember a few tools or learn some new tools today to help us to remember in times of stress. So once again, we're going to take this symbol of hope. Don't blink your eyes because it's going to happen fast. Actually, let's do something fun here. Boop. There we go, a little bit bigger here. There's the three amigos. So take this little emblem of hope. Don't blink your eyes because simply we're going to take it and we're going to put it into our minds and our memories here so that it no longer just sits on a card, that today we can walk away with an emblem of something we can really remember, but not only remember, but digest and apply. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to once again, Leadership in 3D. And I want to introduce my guests here in a moment. Today's theme is Inside Secrets from Top Coaches. I'm going to be introducing to you a few of our continuing themes that will happen through August and September and beyond. I'm just really excited to have you all here. And again, thank you for investing your time in us and an opportunity for us to share our passions with you. So a little bit of a tour, because I know that new technology can be a little bit stressful for all of us, right? And it's like, well, this is not Zoom. I had one of my great friends who's logged in last time. She's like, wait, this is not Zoom. What is this? This was supposed to be Zoom. So welcome. This platform here gives us an opportunity to give you more tools and downloadables and stuff like that. That just, I love Zoom, but this doesn't give me the capabilities of doing it. First and foremost, you'll find out a room tour. And this is if you're on a laptop or a desktop. If you're logging in from your phone, look for this general vicinity. But in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to find a gear, an icon that has two arrows pointing opposite that will actually expand the screen. So if it's a little bit small on your screen, you may want to expand it to the full view instead of like a floating window there. And you'll also have a collapse sidebar button. Speaking of sidebar, you'll find off to the right-hand side of the screen. The right-hand side of the screen has three tabs: a chat window that you can chat out your applause. You can even share a little emoji, which is pretty exciting there. So hello, everyone, a little bit of emoji. Just to test that out, send one of your favorite emojis there. You'll see that down in the bottom right-hand corner. Ooh, thank you, Carla. Lovely. Hello, Molly. So that'll give you something to chat with. Now, there are periodically, myself and my guests will be actually releasing a poll. So we want to ask you some questions, and you'll see that the poll tab will illuminate. The chat tab has not disappeared. It's still there. You just want to click back to the chat. And today we don't have any handouts readily available, but we have a couple really cool freebies that will pop up on the screen as well. But just know as those pop up, your chat window should hang out there. In the far right-hand corner of the chat window, you can actually click that button and the chat window will become a floating window that you can move around or close and get back to the main window. So be patient with technology. For some, you may be experiencing today periodically where my mouth does not match the audio. Like an old classic ninja movie, that is okay. Just kind of close your eyes and listen or focus in on the screen. Some of us are more visual anyway. It all depends on our internet speed. So we're at the mercy of the World Wide Web and the flow of information. Cool. Thank you, Ray. Perfect icon to open up with. This is a symbol that he loves. So thank you, Ray. Great friend of mine. So let's jump on in here. A little bit of orienting to the room. Don't worry if you have to. Just test your audio or log in, log out. I will be sending a recording of today's presentation so that you can rewatch it, take more vigorous notes if you choose, or share it with friends and family. All right. So at the very end, we will have a Q&A, as well as an opportunity for those who stick around to the end to download some really cool freebies, a way to take the knowledge that you gained today to the next level through any of my guests here. I know what the freebies are, and they're awesome. They are freebies that I take advantage of. I would take advantage of myself. So stick around to the very end. If you have questions, write them down, because my panel, my guest presenters, and myself will be answering questions at the very end. So today I have the honor of bringing on Jamie Utley, president of Business Minds, a dear friend of mine who I started my journey into personal development and understanding how people operate with this guy. We've known each other for well over a decade. It is an honor to have him here. So an old friend and a new friend, Kurt Ivey, him and I helped support one of my recent corporate clients, and we just clicked in a way that I was like, Kurt, we got to take your knowledge and I want to share that with some of my tribe. And so I invited him on today, and I'm excited to have him here with us. All right, so thank you, Kurt, and welcome aboard. We still have more icons coming in, which I love. So I'm going to give them an official welcome and introduction here in a moment. But once again, the premise of today is after I introduce them, they have 10 minutes to share 3 key points to move forward, sharing their story, sharing something that you can walk away with and apply today. Now, we have a lot of tools we could share, but I want to get away from the fire hose approach and give you just concrete strategies to apply, put into your mind, and directly apply in your life. Once again, there will be question and answers at the very end, so write down your questions. Get familiar with the chat tab at the top so you can get back to the chat window when we get to that point. All right. So with that, I want to get started with the question. So here we go to the chat window. You're going to see a poll pop up. My question to you is, just so myself and my guests can know who we're dealing with, what's your current work status? Again, we work in the corporate world here, and with executives, we want to know, where are you at? Are you in management or company leadership? Are you an employee or a specialist somewhere? Maybe we're all working from home. Maybe you're not. Maybe you are temporarily unemployed or furloughed, or you're looking for work right now. Maybe you're a business owner, or what I call the ultimate business owner, which is you run a household, not for the meek. Or maybe you're retired. Or if it doesn't fit any of those 5 responses, simply go to the chat tab at the top next to the tab that says polls and chat in what your current work status may be. It'll help us to frame maybe our examples more towards you. Looks like we've got a couple of you who are in management, a handful of you who are employees, so you're reporting to a manager yourselves. I got quite a few of you, 6 of you, half a dozen, 7 of you, wow, that are self-employed. You're a business owner, you're running a household, doing that hustle each and every day. This is, I think, really helpful for us, is, again, we're knowing who our audience is, and thank you for sharing as we move forward. I'll come back to this here and pop in. And then back to our chat window. Masami's a full-time student. I think you fit under the self-employed arena, but it's a very different arena there. So thank you for chatting that in. All right, fantastic. So it gives us an idea of where we're headed here today. So I want to bring on our first guest here. This good-looking guy, like I said, is a dear friend of mine, and it is hard not to get emotional here because I've learned so much alongside this guy. He has taught me so much personally. We have gone through hard times. We have gone through great and wonderful times. We have celebrated many life events together. Jamie Utley, selfishly, I brought him on here because I just love to see him work his art. As a trainer, as a coach, as a consultant, as a guru of how people operate. He's the president of Business Minds R&D, a company that helps executives take their business to the next level in a big and a very real way. This is a guy who keeps clients for life. He's got the special sauce. Currently, he travels around the United States. Currently, as I would assume before pre-March, around the United States, talking to business owners, CEOs, executives on skills and strategies to level up their business. So before I turn you loose, Jamie, I have a question that I think we all maybe wonder, maybe not out loud, but how did you get to where you are today? Like, here you are, a specialist in a role. Will you share with the team a little bit of what got you to where you are today?
My first thought is random luck, which is not actually true. But that was first came up. And then I was like, no, I had clear intentional design. And I think living your life by choice, like we spent so many hours teaching and training others, it's designing the life you were born to love. And for me, that's just intentional choices, go in the direction I want to go, creating. I have great connections with some amazing people. Douglas, you specific, I've been thinking about this, and I was like, I've been self-employed since I was 19. Of all of my business events, of all of the businesses that I've run, of all of the people I've met and connected and created relationships with, you are the biggest blessing to my life. We have spent thousands of hours rubbing shoulders, and so part of me is you, because we have great influence with each other. So that's how I got here. Great people and intentional design.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you jumping on today. And I know that there are many people who are logged on right now who've had their personal lives changed, and many who have said that you have saved their lives.
Nice.
And so thank you for being on.
I usually give Air 10s, but now it's Cyber 5s. That's my thing.
I love the Cyber 5. That would be a great time to find that little emoji down there on high five a Cyber 5. Cyber heart. Man, there's a lot of groovy things down there. I'm still familiarizing myself. So Jamie Utley, from here on, it's your time to shine.
Was thinking about, okay, what's some of my favorite top tips? I've been playing with that a little bit, and nothing really like came into a flow. And what I really got to was like, okay, here's 3 things that I think are something we can activate tonight and create some movement in our lives right now. And these are some of the big topics that I've been training my executives on and coaching, and have had a lot of traction with it. So I'm going to start with what I really do. Okay, my job, if you were to sum it up into one statement, my job is to help people get conscious. Helping people get conscious. Now, here's the thing for humans. With so much of the time, we live on default mode, or fear mode, or overwhelm mode. When we're in that default setting, we end up making poor decisions or taking poor actions, and that causes simply more stress, less of the success. What if we could climb out of that game? What if we could find a way to gain some clarity, life by choice, and that is where I talk about getting conscious. And that's really what a lot of my coaching is. It's just getting conscious. Even my sales teams that I train, it's just getting conscious about how you're communicating, the message you're sending, the skills you're using. And so getting conscious creates intentional decision-making, and intentional decision-making creates better systems, more success. Here's the cool thing about intentional decisions. They're not all right. They're not always right. They're not always the best decisions. The cool thing is, if I made it consciously on purpose, I have peace of mind because I did the best I could with what I had at the time. If I would have known better, I would have done better. Now I do. So now I can make other intentional conscious choice as opposed to the default mode. The reason why I like this one, I'll give you an example because that'll kind of clarify it. I have a lady that I coach. She's an executive. She had a task that just haunted her. She hated it. Anyone love budgeting? Creating the budget, sticking to the budget, balancing the budget, entering all the budget expense. We were talking, and one of my favorite questions I ask is, so what's keeping you up at night? And she's like, the budget's kicking my butt. And we talked about it. And the crazy thing is she gained this conscious awareness of she spends more time and energy, more emotional expense resisting the budget than just actually buckling down and doing it. And it was a cool breakthrough because she was like, that's just silly. And obviously, I mean, we time blocked, we strategized. She did the budget, right? But she did it in intent and not in resistance. And it's just because she got conscious of it. Here's my favorite part of that story, though. Maybe a year later, she's good at doing the budget parts now. She's understanding some of those dynamics. She found big parts of it that she could delegate, so she didn't have to do it at all anyway. And it's all because she gave up the resistance and got some clarity of of exactly what was working and what was not working. And I think as humans, we do this a lot. We miss we live by our patterns. We live by our defaults. I think the book Power of Habit, it says something like 67% of our lives are simply the habits that we live in, the habits that we do. That's not conscious choice. So getting conscious, I bet I'm going to submit there's lots of many other great ways. So this is a momentum activity for you. Okay, I want you to answer the question, what's keeping you up at night? What's keeping you up at night? Let's look specifically. What's working and what's not working? And let's look very specifically there. And there we can get creative. There we can find solutions. There we can move past our patterns and into emotional intelligence, high emotional intelligence. So that's like my starting point. Like if we were to intentionally get conscious rather than live by defaults. A tool that I wanted to go into, this is my bullet point number 2 is this. Probably one of the life skills that is grossly underestimated and rarely ever taught. And it has to do with resistance. Humans, when we live in resistance to change. Something happens, big or small. Anyone had anything change in the last, in the pandemic? We have change. And since change is scary, we resist it. And there's a specific skill that Spencer Johnson is who named it. He wrote the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Give me a wave in the chat if you've read Who Moved My Cheese. Simple, easy book. The principle is really powerful. It's developing the change skill. And I believe it's a skill, not like we intentionally adapt to change. And the whole story is a simple, funny story. And I would say that it's about this character, Ha, who has this transformation from resisting change. One of my favorite parts in the book, the idea is, and most of you will recognize it, like the cheese gets moved, right? What he wants. And he's like, what? Cheese? No cheese? No cheese. If I yell loud enough, they will put it back. And obviously, he gets to adapt to find his new cheese. And I think oftentimes as humans, when we experience change, we go into that mode of, what? If I yell loud enough, they'll put it back. And Doug, you taught me this, and it's Byron Katie who taught you this. She says, when you argue with reality, meaning something changes, you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. And I believe this skill can be amplified, developed, and is one of the top skills that actually gets people, that peak performers have mastered, that they adapt to change. So here's a momentum. Okay, my number one favorite part of the book, not the no cheese, is the moment Ha realizes, gets conscious, and he just laughs at himself. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. He laughs at himself. And I'm sure that's why he was named Ha. So a momentum activity here would be read that book or listen to it. If you are an Audible fan, I have a really cool giveaway for you. And the Audible has Spencer Johnson, the author, on an interview after. And I think it crystallizes the concept really well. So the next momentum activity would that moment of like, just laughing at myself. Let's see. So we have our get conscious, our change skill, and then the last one, it's something I push all the time. It's something I'm really passionate about. My clients, when we work, they're top performers already. They already have drive. They already have all of the mojo, okay? And drive is a strength until it hits a certain point. It might be taken too far and becomes a liability. And that's where burnout happens. That's where I lose my mojo, where my discretionary effort drops and I'm less efficient. Is there an antidote to burnout? You bet. Self-care. I have been, it's always on my radar, and I'm a big fan of self-care. How can we take good care of ourselves? We are in an unprecedented time of stress. Like globally. It's amazing. And we all know it, okay? Now is a great time to double down on taking good care of us, taking good care of and the cool thing is, it doesn't have to be huge. It's not like, okay, I'm going to plan a trip to Hawaii. Oh wait, no, I can't. It's the small and simple things. And the only thing that has meaning is the meaning we give it. So my momentum activity here would be pick something that is very specific for you that would be refueling. And then give yourself permission to let it refuel you. So many times we go on vacation and then we feel guilty for leaving work. So many times we do this thing for ourselves and we feel guilty that our family, I don't want to go to the gym. And if we are like, oh, it's so much time. I don't have time. I don't have energy. It's an investment of time, not an expense. Right now, self-care would be a top thing that I'm pushing. Well, 1, 2, 3. I think I have 10 seconds left, Doug. If I...
That was pretty solid, like a true professional. So can I ask, okay, one thing really quick. I want to summarize in case you missed these because I was writing them down because I was like, oh, this is good already. 3 momentum steps, which are things that will put you in motion towards what you want, an action item. 1, answering the question, what keeps you up at night? Freaking love that. 2 is Who Moved My Cheese? Get that book, read it, love it. And then number 3 is refuel and allow it. And I love that you said this is an investment, not an expense, especially right now, which is really, really great. So as you get to share these topics, now some of you may look at this at anything we share today and you're like, well, that's rather simple. Yeah, we're sharing this stuff at the highest levels because no matter where you go, humans are humans. We're experiencing this. Now, Jamie has a knack, like a magnet, like I said before, of getting people, getting clients and keeping them for life. So my question to you is, what's your secret? Is it hypnosis? Is it some kind of voodoo?
I am very fortunate that I have a very low turnover. And, you know, if I was thinking that through, that goes to some of my unique gifts, one of which is I have a very deep level of caring. Like, these are my friends. I call them on their birthdays. I sing to them on our coach anniversary, which is after we've been a year. I sing a cappella solo. It's rather awkward for them. Yeah, awkward. And so for me, where I have my business background, been self-employed all these years, leadership, managing team members, mixed with my personal development, everything, Doug, you and I learned on that beautiful path and wrote, and every tool we ever created, then the leadership, sales training. Years ago, I did kind of an estimate, and I have over 10,000 hours on stage. It's probably more like 15,000 hours now. And so a really wide bandwidth of constant reading, constant learning. I mean, even right now I'm reading Radical Candor, and I pulled out some wicked cool golden nuggets that I get to train on. And it's just always finding the new stuff and bringing all of that and really loving these people. That's it. That's what it comes down to for me. So that's my answer to that question.
I love that. I think, you know, when we invest in the things that we value, because that value then appreciates. Like anything you invest in, when people feel valued, they tend to want to stick around. And Jamie, a skill that you do extraordinarily well is those who are in your presence feel so extraordinarily valued. So thank you for sharing that with me. And today we're going to bring Jamie back on, but we're going to leave him on here because there's a little secret to success that if there are those you want to emulate or be like, you want to copycat them a little bit, do what they do. And I've asked Kurt and Jamie to leave their webcams on. I know it's like I'm just listening and watching these people, but it's to helping me to emulate them. And also for fear that if we turn off one of their webcams, it will never turn back on again. So if you're wondering, like, why are we staring at these three people listening to one? It's because technologically it is better to hedge our bets on keeping whatever's working on. So, and it's also to help you to emulate these wonderful gentlemen as they present. So, Jamie, I'm going to bring you back on in a moment, but you're going to stick around. We're going to grill you with a few Q&As, but also you planted a little bit of seed. He's got a really cool, just supposing for a moment that you could have access to the books that Jamie just talked about. But not only those, but access to hundreds of books like those. He's got a secret he's going to share with you at the end. All right, okay, stick around. All right, so with that in mind, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you sharing your gifts with us today. I want to bring up our next guest. By up, I mean here. So prepare to give a warm welcome to Kurt Ivey. So raise your fingers and get ready to chat. Welcome. Instead of standing on your feet, you raise your fingers and say welcome, Kurt. Kurt Ivey here. He has owned and operated 4 businesses. He's consulted with businesses small and large, insisted in guiding entrepreneurs and small business leaders through the 4 phases of leadership in operation. This is a guy who not only understands how people operate, but he also understands business management and business operation. I'm excited to have him share a little bit of the inner workings of how to be successful as a business. And understand this: if you instantly just checked out because you're like, oh, I'm self-employed, or oh, I'm just an employee, or oh, I'm a student. We are all running our own businesses and negotiating problems and navigating through these. My hope is you get a glean off of these tools, some great strategies you can apply to whomever you lead in your life, whether it's at work or at home or yourself. So Kurt, tell us a little bit about what got you to where you are today in creating Phase 4 Consulting. What was your path? Just give us a little sneak peek of what got you to this seat in front of us today.
Oh, well, first disclaimer is I have to make the claim that my mind works a lot faster than my mouth. So if I tend to leave something out, I'm blaming it on technology, right? All right, Jamie, thank you so much. What Jamie shared was awesome and was quite insightful even for me. I enjoy the deeper part, the corporate psychology part. In fact, that's where Doug and I met, and I'll get to that in 2 seconds. But they actually got me a couch and brought it into my office because everybody seemed to visit my office just to chat about what's going on in the business. Little bit of my background. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, the city that never sleeps. Just not New York. Smaller statue. My family, the majority of my family, all own their own businesses. Anything from construction to custom candy to floral and bridal shops to financial planning to assisted living. Our family get-togethers end up being more like corporate settings. Where you just get together and you talk about, hey, so how's your family? Okay, now what are you doing in your business? How did this work? And so that's what we were brought up to do. We were brought up to own our own business. And so I wasn't 19, Jamie, kudos on you, but I was 25. I started my first company. I failed miserably. I learned exactly what not to do in business. Financially, I learned exactly how not to treat people. I learned how just chaotic business can be because you have no direction. Just because you're the boss doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And that's a little more. I'll tell you a little more story about that. How Doug and I met. Just because you're the business owner doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're doing. So I started my second company. It was a partnership, and we did very well together. I bought my partner out and continued my progress. Ended up buying a franchise. We had some great successes there. They invited me in on the corporate side because I was the top producing franchisee in the entire organization in less than 6 months. And they said, what are you doing to be so successful? I don't know, I'm just doing what's right. I'm just running a business. Well, they invited me in on the operations side to help create policies, procedures, and all kinds of little things that would help the traditional franchisee make more money, because if they make more money, then the higher percentage goes to the organization as well. So everybody wins in that. I loved that. I actually fell in love with it. I actually put down payment on a larger franchise. And unfortunately, we had a little difference in opinions of values. And so we had to separate. We settled out of court, and there was a non-compete clause, which they waived. And so I thought, well, geez, I just spent the last year and a half developing their company. Why wouldn't I do that for myself? So I started my own company, basically doing the same thing. Owned it for about 5 years, and we got to the point where, okay, I need to make a choice. I either need to expand outside of my home state, or I need to franchise. So I started talking to these attorneys, these corporate attorneys, and said, what's the best option? I was paying these yahoos, I don't know how much an hour. And I was at lunch with some of my employees. I said, man, I think I want to go to law school. And jokingly, or at least I thought it was jokingly, one of my employees said, if you want to go to law school, I'm interested in buying your business. Next thing I know, my business is gone. I did not attend law school because I dislike corporate politics and I dislike confrontation. I need to be more hands-on, business building. And so I got led and steered to a prestigious institution to get an MBA. And so that's where I got recruited from to come back to home after I attended my institution and was recruited to be an executive officer for a small growing company. But during that time, I was able to consult for multiple other small companies in different industries. And I got to see different industries, from brick and mortar stores to 100% online, to complete startups, to corporations doing 25 million a year and less, mom and pops. And that's when I found out that my love isn't owning the business. My love, my Disneyland, is actually the business development. That's what I love. And so that's what I got to know a little bit more, and I got in touch with this while I was introduced to Doug. He kind of helped me see some different things, like, you know what, I'm doing this in a corporate environment, and I love it, but the situation is I'm getting kind of tired of it because it's the same, I'm dealing with the same unhealthy personalities every day. And so I decided to break off on my own. And so that's where I'm at now, as I've created myself. That's where we are today. There's a little background about myself.
This is going to come to full circle. But what I love about what you do is you talk about the 4 phases of growth in a business, and it's phase 4 consulting, which is also IV, which is also your last name. Is this on purpose?
Yes, it is.
I knew it. This is so
marketing. Come on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, Kurt, share with us now, taking all that wealth of knowledge, give us an idea of business development. What can we do to develop ourselves as leaders and as business owners or as employees in any aspect we want to apply this? The floor is yours. Thank you, Kurt.
All right. Well, thank you. So in my experience, what I've found is that there's actually 4 phases of business ownership. And I'll walk you just briefly before I get to my 3 points to stimulate business development about these 4 phases. Phase 1, the sole proprietor, the owner operator, the self-proclaimed CEO, even if it is only on paper and you filed it with the state. That's you. That's phase 1. It is a total different world when you are your own boss, because the last person you're going to fire is you. What happens is you spend about 70, 80 hours a week doing things that you are pretty passionate about, because that was the reason you got into business. But then you realize 70, 80 hours, 100 hours a week, it's killing me. And so you do something about it, and you hire your first headache, your first employee. I will never forget, that was one of the greatest growing moments for me, is when I let go of control of just one small portion of my business. And Jamie, I'm sure you can relate to this. The deeper part is like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Right? This unforeseen. Well, the problem is with that is we recognize that, okay, we can only do so much productivity within our time frame. So we need to hire somebody. So we hire our first, we hire our second, third, fourth, so on and so forth. And there's something that clicks somewhere around there, because we have this perception that, why isn't everything getting done the way we want it to be done? Why is everybody doing their own thing? Why is it's not working? And so you end up spending what's keeping you up at night, worrying about your employees. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? So then what happens is you get somewhere around 10, 11 employees, and you go, I can't handle this. I need to hire a manager. So that's phase 2. Moving from phase 2 to phase 3, you hire managers who now manage teams. Now, that is a whole different world in itself, going from now you are dealing with the normal employee to having to train, develop, and mentor leadership. Now, leadership does not come natural to the majority of people. It is a skill set that is taught. And that is something that Jamie, Doug, and myself and others have learned. I'm sure there's a portion that comes natural, but we have learned all over time that there are certain things you can and there's certain things you can't do. It's a different type of mindset. And so while you're training, developing, and mentoring these new managers, the magic number is somewhere between 5 and 7. That's what statistics say. 5 to 7 direct reports. If you have superstars, now when I say superstars, these are not leaders or employees that you're babysitting. These are people that do nothing but tell you exactly what they're doing, and you trust, and they are perfectly proficient at what they do. If they are people you need to babysit, they say the low number is 5. I believe it's lower than that, just because I've been in that boat of how many direct reports I've had to have. They eat up most of your time, and you're always putting out fires and never have time to do what you need to do or what you're really good at. The other portion of developing and training leadership managers is it's organizational behavior 101. If you own a technology company or programmer, you have a programmer that is out programming everybody else. He's producing more than anybody else in your whole business. What do? You promote him. Well, what's he really good at? He's really good at programming. Okay, so now he's over a team of 2 or 3 other people, and he's spending about 20% of his time managing, training, and developing, but still spending 75 to 80% programming. Outproducing. His team is outproducing because he's the one doing the work. And so what do? You promote him again. Well, what happens? Somewhere between that promotion and the next promotion, everybody underneath him quits. And you have a hard time maintaining and keeping people around. Why? Because this technician, this person who was really good at programming, was never taught people skills or leadership skills. And so therefore, the best and the brightest always leave because of the leadership. And so that's what happens mostly in phase 3. Phase 4 leadership is team-led businesses. When was the last time you think Jeff Bezos actually visited every single warehouse in Amazon and knows what's going on? Bill Gates, do you really think he knows what's going on in the office in France? No. And for some reason, we have this concept, no matter who we are, whether we're self-employed, whether we're in phase 2 where we have a few employees, or even phase 3, we have this concept that I own a phase 4 company, but it ain't doing what I'm supposed to be. What is going on? And because I'm the boss and I know what's best, it's somebody else's fault. It's somebody else's dog and pony show. They're not doing it the way I taught them. That was probably one of the greatest learning experiences I had. It was actually with one of my employees. He was actually my brother-in-law at the time, always complaining about a raise. He said, I need a raise, I need a raise, I need a raise. I finally went to him and just said, look, if you can talk your sister into giving you a raise, I'll give you one. But right now, you're making more money than me because nobody else is paying their bills. By rights, we have to pay employees first. The employer gets what's left over. And sometimes it's not always what you think it is. And so we were having this heated discussion about him wanting to do things his way. And I would always tell him, look, I didn't bid this job that way. You can't do it that way. You have to do it exactly how I said, and just do it because I'm your boss. Or you can go find another job. Well, there was one day I came up and I said, look, I have to run to another appointment. Here's my expectations. I want this finished before I get back. And I'll be back in a couple hours. I left, I came back, it was done. It looked so freaking fantastic. I was totally shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, that is way better than what I would have done. And he was happy. I learned that day that I am not in control, and by far, it didn't cost me a penny more. I think he actually saved me money by doing that project that way, and he was happy. Just because we're the boss doesn't mean we know what's going on. And so these, each one of these quadrants are coached differently. But in reality, there's these 3 stimulating business points. One, we have to learn about leadership. We have to learn about people. This is the core issue with every single problem in business: leadership. I don't care who it is. If you have a business that has a top product, the number one selling off the shelf product, and you have poor management, that business is going down. If you have good leadership and a crappy product or service, that good leadership will develop the product and service, and the next thing you know, you have a flourishing business. Books after book after books have been written about topics and processes of this nature. Books after books will also tell you how many entrepreneurs aren't very good executives because they are creative. They aren't necessarily leaders. And so I define a leader as someone who you want to follow. You can only lead those who want to follow. You must therefore become someone who people want to follow. And Doug and I had this great experience because this past the business venture where we met, we had a leader who wanted everybody to follow him, but nobody wanted to follow him because he lacked a lot of integrity. He lacked a lot of honesty. He lacked a lot of other core values that didn't match his role. And I hate to say that I subscribe very highly to the Stephen Covey principles, that the core values are those that drive business. The old-fashioned, be honest, have integrity, do what you say you're going to do. That is what's going to keep your business. So integrity breeds trust. Trust breeds relationships, and relationships are part of business. And so you have to have that process of personal development. The second stimulant business point to recognize is you have to have a direction. You have to have a strategy. Now, some people go into business just because they're passionate about what they do. Now, that's great. Some people went into business because they wanted to make a lot of money. Some people went into business because they had to. Some people went into business because they want control. The problem is a lot of us aren't very honest with why we went into business, with ourselves. And so again, back to some of the things that Jamie talked a little bit about, is we need to be honest with ourselves and become more conscious. I love that word. You get to come to a reality of, this quote, when we argue with reality, we occasionally lose, only 100% of the time. That's what I wrote down. I don't know if that's what you said, but that's what I got out of it. Oh my gosh, that is so true. But we need to find out what our strategy is. Is it long-term? Is it short-term? What's the real reason why you went into business? If you lack that direction, number one, as an entrepreneur, as a single sole proprietor, you're going to be struggling for a long, long time. Statistics show that 9 out of 10 businesses fail their first year. 7 out of 10 of that succeed fail their second year because they lack these 3 principles. But these top 2 are the most crucial to succeeding or failing in business. The third one is cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Just because there's money in the bank doesn't mean you can go off and buy a new house or a new truck or a new computer or a new gun or whatever it is you spend your money on. This is a business. It's not a personal piggy bank. When we lack the discipline to do what's right, take all emotionality out of it. This is what you learn in risk management in your MBA. Take all emotion out of your decision making and you'll succeed. The problem with that is entrepreneurs, that's what drives them. This emotional drive, and that's what's great. We need the world. The world needs entrepreneurs. There's a great book out. It's called Addicts or Millionaires, and by Jeff Patey. Patey is his last name. Great, phenomenal coach. He has ADD at the wazoo, has multiple businesses, and he talks about how he's so scatterbrained that there's no way he could have been successful in any of these businesses except he had a partner. And his partner, his only job was to filter through all of his ideas and say, that's the one you need to focus on. Forget the other 565. And that has made him successful. You have to find that logical realist who can say, this is reality, and you have to pair that with your passion and your drive and the creativity. I have tons of creative people in my family, and they all make really good money in their businesses, but they also spend really good money in their businesses. And when the times are hard, they struggle. Cash flow. Now, if you were to talk to any large organization, and I'm sure, Jamie, that you've probably seen this, that every department thinks they're the most crucial department in their business. You go to R&D, they say, yeah, without research and development, you have nothing to sell. The sales rep says, no. The sales department is, because what we do is we take that and we sell it. The marketing says, well, HR, no. Now, every spoke in the wheel is important. But what I learned is that the financial world is how you measure it. It doesn't matter who the created. You need something to measure. And the cash flow and the profit and loss, the financial world, is how you measure it, because those guys have no emotions. They're the accountants. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. I love accounting, but they have no emotions, and they tell you, yes, this is working. No, this isn't working. And you got to take that out. But those are the three things I truly wish I would have learned before I even started my first company, because those are the three things. Number one, I learned in theory through my MBA. Number two, through experience. Number three, through my executive experience and watching teams develop and fail.
Awesome. Geez, thank you so much. So, okay, where can I take this to the next level, Kurt? Like, where could I go to find out more on leadership strategy and cash flow?
There's only three ways to learn. And I share this story that an entrepreneur, and I apologize for the entrepreneurs out there, but this was me. I'll use myself as the guinea pig here. An entrepreneur decides, I'm going to make a living off of jumping off of bridges. And he calls his friend over and he says, hey, I want you to watch me do this. And I have one other friend, and I want you to write this down and record this. So he jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge, lands at the bottom, splat, just like a watermelon, right? So the person witnessing that, he's like, well, I could have solved that problem. Basically, just tie a rope around his neck. That way, he won't ever get to the bottom to go splat. And the person records that, right? And so another entrepreneur comes along and says, I think I want to make a living off of jumping off of bridges. And the person who witnesses said, hey, the last guy that did that, that's his remains down there. That's him. So what we're going to do, we don't want you to hit the bottom. We're going to tie this rope around your neck. That way, it'll be saved. So the guy jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge, and we all can figure out what happens there, right? All right. Oh, well, that wasn't such a good idea. So another entrepreneur comes along and says, I want to make a living off of jumping off of bridges. And the witness, who now said, okay, asked the guy who was recording, said, what happened to the last two? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. So this time, let's tie it around his feet. All right. So he jumps off. Well, you can kind of guess what happens there. Either it just doesn't work. Thus, we have somebody who invents a bungee cord, right? Now, unfortunately, the only way to learn is by failing. Somebody has to jump off the bridge to provide the lesson. Yes, there are going to be people who learn by watching, and yes, there are going to be people who learn by reading the notes through school. Now, often you get somebody who says, yes, I've jumped off a bridge and I'm now successful. I lived, I took. Well, they don't quite tell you that the bridge they jumped off of was the creek up the canyon here that was only 2 feet off the ground. But for some reason in our perception, our mind, we have, yes, he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and he was successful. I can do that too. That guy's a buffoon. Perception is quite different. Reality is even more different than our perceptions. And so we need to recognize that there are people with experience, and there are people who have theory, and there are people who have no common sense. But the reason, even Tiger Woods has a coach. And so here's a shameless plug to anybody out there, to Doug, Jamie, myself, or anybody else. You need a coach. A coach is who has the background to share with you their failures. Anybody who tells you they're successful all the time is full of crap. I can tell you that. Not only that, I tell my kids that all the time. If you think because I'm your parent that I'm perfect, you're out of your mind. In fact, I probably told them a little bit too much about my past. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, remember? Anyway, I have a brother who's an officer down there. He's forgiven me, got me, whatever. But as for the most part, that's how we learn. We got to find a coach. We have to find somebody who really can share with us how to move forward, to take those next steps. And that's what
I love it. Thank you. So we got to find a coach who's been up the creek and back. Yeah. I would agree. I myself hire a coach. I have a coach myself, and I gain so much value. It moves me forward. It's that accountability piece that's huge. So I want to take just a few minutes to share 3 condensed points for y'all before we move into Q&A. It's a great time to write down any questions you might have for Jamie and Kurt. Again, Kurt, thank you so much for your experience. There's nothing that teaches better than a good story, and I love a good storyteller, and you do that very, very well. So moving into our last 3 points, and then we're going to summarize everything, jump into Q&A. Of course, you stick around. We have a couple of cool freebies. Kurt has an opportunity for some of you who, if you want to take advantage of it, could really get you to that bridge faster and safer, I guess, per se, right? So basically, the problem about life is that problems are expensive, right? They're expensive, and they're everywhere. It's part of life. Problems are, right? Problem about problems ultimately is that when we are faced with a problem, we get really panicky and we want to solve it quicker. So we go to any tool that seems like it will fix the problem. The problem with that is we don't actually get down to the root problem, and we end up treating a symptom of the problem. Now, true, we've got to treat a fever. But if all we do is treat a fever, because the fever will kill us, if all we do is treat a symptom of the root problem, the fever will return. And so I want you to be thinking of something right now where something in your life where you currently see as a problem, that maybe it has come back a time or two before. Maybe we've brushed it aside, hoping it will go away, or we've talked about it, we've applied strategies, but we're still not through it. In fact, what's the area of life right now that has the biggest challenge for you? And I want you to chat it in the chat window here. What's the biggest challenge? Now, for some of you, it might be like, oh, my employees are super disengaged right now. They're working from home. Productivity is tanking. Or maybe it's a tension with a spouse about talking about finances, or a child who's misbehaving. Some of us, it's like, I can't seem to shake that extra 20 pounds. In fact, the extra 20 pounds are shaking me a little bit too much, right? So what is the area where you feel like, wow, I've got a challenge here that keeps coming back over and over again? And all of that's happened right now with the pandemic is it's magnified that problem. Again, the problem with this is instead of facing the real problem, we go to work on the solution, and then we wonder why it's not going away. Or worse, how many of you ever had, if this has been true about you, and again, I do want you to chat in the window here. If this has been true about you, I want you to simply type in been there, done that, or a hand raise or emoji of some sort. But if you've ever been in a conversation, an argument, someone may say, with like your spouse or a friend or family member, maybe you're talking about finances or about something around the house, right? In the middle of the conversation, you kind of have this out-of-body experience being like, we're not really talking about the real problem. But you want to be so right, so you just stay on the current topic. If that's ever been true about you, I want you to just chat in like, been there, done that, put a little emoji in there. Again, that's times where we're talking about what we think is the problem, but it's actually just a symptom of the problem, right? And so we get to take a look at, okay, how do we get down to that core problem? And today what I want to do is give you some 3 quick Ds, as I call them, to avoid wasting our time on the wrong problem. And this is something I used just last week with a VP of risk And it's a tool I use a lot with myself and others. And just these first 3 stages alone can help us to get down to that. So I'm seeing here, Vivian, Masami, Jen, you're feeling it. Jeff, you're feeling it as well. Thank you. And next time, my hope is if you're ever in a discussion or an argument that you're like, wait a minute, this is not the real problem, is it? It might be what I call your phantom problems, right? Problem solving is a skill that we've got to get used to and get good at, in addition to like communication and people skills. Now, there's an organization called, the Human Economic Forum. They do a study of top HR officials across large global companies, and they report what are the top skills right now that people need to be valuable in the workforce. Top 3, I mean, there's really good ones in here: emotional intelligence, EQ, solid, people management. Number 1 is complex problem solving, which was number 1 in 2019 as well. We got to get good at solving problems. So that's what we want to get really clear on, is how do we get good at sharpening our problem solving skills? And before we do that, the prerequisite, as I call it, before you can get good at problem solving, you must be good at problem finding. So these 3 Ds help us to avoid wasting more time on the wrong problem and get down to the core problem faster than anything else. And I'd like to jump into that as well. In addition to that, you can take it further. I have some really cool questions that I like to ask. I have it in a quick downloadable PDF that you can download at the end. All right, so let's jump into these 3. Number 1, we've got to start with the first D, and that is the don't wants. We've got to define what isn't working first. What don't we want? Jamie talked about it before. It's like, do less of what's working or do less of what's not working and more of what is working. Well, gosh, we got to get really clear on what's not working. And for most of us, that's pretty easy. Where are you experiencing stress? Where does your mind drift off to? Once again, it may be a toddler who's misbehaving, not following instructions, or it's again productivity, it's fallen low. Or for me, full disclosure, my 5-year-old is the toddler that is misbehaving all the time. And that is the current problem of what's not working. You know, the current strategy system's not working. Last week, I worked with an executive that is like, I have got to fire an employee who's been here for a very long time, and I know that person is going to fly off the handle emotionally. I don't want to experience that. And so that's where it's like, okay, good, fantastic. Now we're clear on what you don't want. Next, we move in. In fact, if you want to get brave, this would be a great opportunity here for you, is what is one thing you know isn't working? Or you can just pick an area of life. I know there's quite a few on there, not just Vivian, Jen, Masami, and Jeff, Carla, Marissa. I want you to type in, what is the area of life where you know something's just not working, all right? Jen as well, got it? Cool, so with that in mind, then and only then can we move on and gain clarity on what we do want, right? So again, take a look at whatever it is for you that you don't want. Well, what do you want instead? Or maybe ask the question, what I may want instead, or what might work better in this situation? For me, it's the opposite of a toddler who's misbehaving, a toddler who's not misbehaving, right? But it's actually more than that. What I want is I want to be able to explain and teach my toddler what works and what doesn't work in a way that he can grow faster through life. That's what I really want. That would work better for me. I love my son, right? And I want to be able to work and have the skills to work more with him. So my second D is that do want. What do we want instead? Now, maybe for a hiring manager or a sales department, they want productivity from their employees who are working from home, people who are highly engaged. For my executive last week, I want to have the employee understand why they're being let go, why they weren't fulfilling all of the tasks at hand. And I want this to be a loving and calm and reasonable and constructive conversation, because we have this lifetime of or many years of experience together. So looking at the area in your life, okay, taking care of myself physically, maybe taking care of the screen time a little bit. Great, a couple physically stuff. Time management, great one to look at as far as the area of what's not working. Keeping up with school, a lot of work, right? Especially if you have a family and a job. So with that, what might you want instead, and really define that? Because sometimes we just focus in on what's not working, and it becomes very easy to do, especially when we're riddled with stress or stressors that are hitting us from all areas. So once we know what we don't want, we move to the third and final D, and our work's not over because this D is to dig. Keep digging, because the don't want is commonly just a symptom. I said not always, but commonly just a symptom of a deeper problem. And until we do our due diligence to really look at, well, why isn't that working? Like, what might be a cause behind that? Once again, we still have to solve the problem. You still have to handle time management, maybe looking at your personal life and balance. Maybe you guys still look at your screen time, but what's driving what's behind some of that? What's driving some of those behaviors that you don't like? And we get to really look at this. Some of those areas of what's not working might be a lack of just planning. For some of you, it's I'm not planning. For others, it's a lack of skills. For me personally, working with my son, it's a lack of skill on my part. He's 5. He's learning perfectly as he should at 5. And so I got to actually get really clear on what are the symptoms here. Well, one is, to Jamie here, when I'm not taking good care of myself, I don't use good parenting skills. I use the classic yelling which never works, by the way, never in my house. Yelling is always met with more yelling from a toddler, and he yells much louder than I do. And so what I have come to understand is I got to take good care of myself. For others, what's not working, the root cause, why they're having that conversation over and over again isn't about the finances. It's about a lack of trust or a betrayal of trust. Maybe it's a lack of accountability, which is a skill. For others, they're just simply avoiding the problem because of a deeper subconscious thought that's having them feel like they need to control a situation or have power over a situation. So let's get to the root of the problem. Again, we still have to address the fever, but until we deal with what's causing the problem and understand what that is, it makes it really challenging, and we would just be wasting our time on the wrong problem. And so we don't want to waste our breath. And then from there, we can actually start looking at what do we want instead? What would actually work a lot better? And for me, it's really important when I found out the root of the problem. One, my son is on the autism spectrum. When he is overstimulated or understimulated, he knows the only thing he knows to do is act out. That's his skill set. That's what works for him. And when I actually overstimulate more with yelling or trying to tell him just what to do, he acts out even more. Not awesome, right? So this is where it's important for us to get down to that root core problem and actually invest some good time there. So I want you to answer this question for yourself and really ask this. What might be? We don't know what it is until we kind of throw some things at the wall. What might be the root problem that's causing this thing that I don't want? Until I get clear on that, then I cannot go about chasing what I do want instead. Albert Einstein, actually it wasn't Albert Einstein, spoiler alert. He's been misattributed to this quote quite often, but he said, there's a wonderful quote that says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and then 5 minutes thinking about solutions, right? Because if we are focusing on the wrong problem, we end up wasting our time, energy, and commonly the problem gets worse over time. And so with that in mind, speaking of problem, my slides have now stopped. So we're going to do this all without slide decks. So prepare yourselves. My momentum to you, once again, is look at the challenge that you may have chatted in or wrote on your notes, the thing that's not working for you, and simply ask this one question, and that is, what might be causing the problem that isn't working, the thing I don't want? What might be a symptom of that? And what might be a symptom of that? Now, it's possible that is the problem. That's it. Easy peasy. But commonly, it's deeper than that. And if we can look at that, then we can catch it earlier on and start applying solutions. Now, with that in mind, I have a couple of announcements for you. Yep, that's it. I have a couple announcements. Now I got to do it from memory instead of cheating off on my screen here. So a couple announcements, and there are announcements in 3 because it's Leadership in 3D here. First off, my next webinar, my next training is coming up. In fact, the next one is not a podcast. It's coming up in a couple weeks, actually, the 30th of July. I'm running 2 training seminars. It's what is called the 5-minute coaching strategy. If you want to get really good at coaching, whether it's in your home, whether it's in your business, and you want to be able to do it in 5 minutes, this is something you're going to want to attend. Commonly, we think coaching is giving advice. No, I'm going to share with you the number one strategy for a great coach or leader you've got to have in order to take it to the next level. So it's a training seminar in which I'm going to be just me training content. You can actually be practicing and working through and asking some questions. And then at the end of August, I'm bringing my next 2 guests on for, again, a live video podcast. And it is living your authentic life, living at a level of extraordinary. And so I'm bringing in a couple specialists that go in and talk to individuals and talk to businesses how to work with people in an inclusive and diverse way, working with diversity within an organization and do it in an awesome and authentic way. So whether it's one-on-one or in a company, that's going to be really cool. I'm excited for that. So it'll be late August because my third announcement is mid-August. I'm actually officially launching what is called Coach Lead Grow Academy. It is an online interactive coaching school for coaches who want and leaders who want to actually take this hobby of being good with people to the next level. Take the hobby business and take it up a notch. Launching August 16th and some pretty cool stuff. So you want to sign up and keep in contact with me with my newsletter so you can know when that launches so you're at the cutting edge there. Pretty cool stuff. A couple things here is basically, I want to share some of the techniques that have kept my coaching business thriving through the pandemic and how to avoid the 7 mistakes that many debutante coaches and leaders make that actually pushes people away instead of what we think is actually attracts people. So with that in mind, it's time for freebies. You get a car and you get a car and you get a car, but we're all in quarantine, so you don't get the car anymore. It just sits in your driveway, and I'm just going to pick it up anyway. So now that we got those freebies out of the way, let's talk about a few freebies that we do have as opportunities for you. Jamie, I'm going to allow you to share your freebie. Take a little bit, and I want you to take it to the next level here. In a moment, you're going to see a pop-up on your screen that gives you access to Jamie's freebie. Jamie, what do you got for us?
Found, and I'm a believer. The more you know, the more you
I'm just
grow.
having fun.
Is my sound okay? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
The more you know, the more you grow. One of the things my brilliant business partner started years ago was a corporate Audible account, and where the books that we teach about and the things that we train, things we talk about, people can go and get a deeper understanding of this concept or tool. It's grown huge, and I think we have over 250 books right now on our corporate Audible account. Here's the cool part. Every client of Business Minds, which in this way includes you today, gets free access to my corporate Audible account, which has in it the Power of Habit that we talked about earlier, the Who Moved My Cheese that we talked about, and Kurt, I'd like to get that one by Jeff Peedy, but I didn't catch the title. So if you send me that, I'll make sure we get that on there as well. And it's a beautiful resource that I feel is how we can have this growth mindset and thus create the life we were born to love. So take advantage of it. You'll log out of your Audible account and into our corporate Audible account, and that's how you get access to it. So there's the login.
I love this access. I love Audible. I love this access, and so you should see a pop-up on your screen that just has the Business Minds Research and Development logo. You want to click on I want access. I wanted to simplify this process for you, so you just put in your name, your email, and that will get emailed to you directly, the access codes and all that good stuff. This is on business, this is on leadership, this is on personal development. You're going to find some really good tasties in there. So once again, you're going to want to click I want access to that. And thank you, Jamie, so much for the generosity and that my team can take advantage of that. So it's really, really cool. I'll also attach that in an email just in case you missed it, but it's going to be there on the spot. Kurt, what do you got for us today? I do feel a little bit like my dream role was to be on Price is Right. So this is, you got to shamelessly just deal with this, everybody. So Kurt, tell us, for those who are sticking around, what do you got for us?
Well, the three statistics that I showed with you, the 3 processes, the leadership one is an ongoing process. That is something that needs to be worked on throughout your life. And so I'm offering the number 2, which is strategy. One thing that I learned immensely in my MBA program was the strategic business model. I had never seen anything like that, and it opened my eyes to giving me direction on my future businesses, as well as how a competition works and how we work with our consumer. And so what I would like to do is introduce this strategic business model to you for a free hour and talk to you and define your strategy. And everybody's strategy is different, but it is something that you can apply immediately and give you extreme value, because you won't make another strategic decision without looking or at least thinking about this strategic business model.
Crazy value, just 1 hour of time, and you want some good strategies. You got to get an outsider to tell you how to take a jump off the bridge or into the creek, whatever the level is you're going at. So thank you again for generously sharing your time with us. And it's the thing that is finite for each and every one of us. So great opportunity there. You want to click that. Kurt will get your information, and then he will contact you and find a good time to get to work. No better time to get out of the rut that sometimes we find ourselves in. So with that, our final freebie here, I shared with you that there are some key questions I like to share in the process that I guide individuals through, and just digging deeper and getting to solutions. So it's just a PDF download with some critical questions that I love. You're going to see that pop up on the screen. Once again, tell me where to send that beauty, where you can, you'll get a link to download that. Problem solving, digging deeper. And then just questions, my favorite questions, simple, easy, to the point. Practice them with yourself and practice those with others as well. All right, so prepare now. You may be clicking, it may be taking you to other screens. That's really cool. You can still hear me. This is a great time to now pull some of those questions off the sheet, and you can start chatting them back in the window. Now, your screen might have moved to maybe the polls tab or the handouts tab. All you do is go back to the chat window or the little arrow pointing to the side with a line by it, and it will bring open the chat window. But I want us to just address a couple questions. We just have a few more minutes left, and I want to thank everybody for sticking around here to the end. A few more questions. I'm going to ask Kurt and Jamie to think about what's a common question you do get asked. Because maybe it's like, I don't know what question to ask. What's a common question that you may get asked, either about your profession or about what you do, or even personally? How do you stay mentally on top because you're a buoy for others? And what would be that question? So I have a question, Jamie, first for you, and then if there's a common question, you can address that at that time. Once again, if you are in the room, you still have some lingering great questions, it's a great time to chat those in the chat box, and we'll address those at that time. So, Jamie, my question to you is, you may be just logging back in. Again, we get to deal with the technology. It's new, it's exciting stuff. And so I'm going to jump in for you, with you, Kurt, as far as just questions are concerned. If I were to sign up for an hour of time with you, how do I prepare for this? Like, what do I do? Honestly, it's like, I'd be nervous, because what if, I don't have a business, but I still want to work on strategies, and I want to start a business. How would I prepare for this event?
So what I found is a lot of people think they know their why, or know that what their strategy is. And in implementing and actually visualizing this model that was given to me, it causes you to think and define your why even deeper. Simon Sinek says his book is Find Your Why. When we actually feel and recognize both emotionally and logically what our why is, that's what drives it. And when you can actually visualize it and take there's 4 different areas that we work on, and focus on them depending on how big your organization. If it's just if you're a self-employed entrepreneur, it'll be mind-boggling. If you are an organization that has multiple teams, you'll actually divide up into teams and give each one of them different responsibilities in this strategic plan. Because it may be something as simple as you're looking to expand your market, you're looking to pierce their corporate veil and try to compete with them. It may be something as simple as mergers and acquisitions. If you don't understand your why, all you're doing is chasing your tail. All you're doing is just getting up and going through the routine. And so just be aware, maybe by preparing yourself, just being more honest. I love what Jamie had to say, being more conscious about what your true why is, because once we plug it into this strategic business model, it'll send it screaming to where you want to, the direction you want to go.
So my question out there, and again, this is to Jamie, if you're still out there, and again, we just roll with the punches here, technology-wise. I'm good with that. My question is, and this may be a question for anybody who's still on. So answer me this question, if you will. Why, if step number one is to get conscious, in your opinion, that would assume that we are not conscious. What brings us to a state? What distracts us from being more conscious, from being more self-aware? Like, what would you say, team out there listening? And again, I know that some of you are probably busy downloading stuff, getting your Audible. You're probably halfway through Who Moved My Cheese by now. But what keeps us from being conscious? We have just about 2 more minutes left, and then we're going to close up shop here. At the end of today, by the time we end up, it's actually going to forward you onto a screen to register for the upcoming podcasts and training webinars, if those are interesting to you. So what keeps you from being conscious, Jen, is like a pathway that is most comfortable. Yeah, geez, like comfort zone. Carla's totally on board there. Negative thoughts, yeah, the negative thought cycle, that overwhelm, keeping us from being conscious. Jamie, for you, what, in your opinion,
I'm having connectivity. Say that one more time, Doug. I'm having connectivity problems.
Sorry about that. My question for you, and then we're wrapping up here. Sorry about that. My question for you, and then we're going to be wrapping up here in 60 seconds. What keeps people from being conscious? And the chat board, they're starting to enter in their ideas of what keeps people from being conscious. Step number one for you is to get conscious.
We're often stuck in our own paradigms. The way we see it is the way we see it, and it's hard to see it another way, which is why I think it's really valuable to have a coach. What Kurt was saying was, if you don't have a coach, how are you ever going to see things differently? And so to my perspective, I think it's perspective. I think also it's a lot of fear. It takes a high emotionally intelligent person to be able to look at it, because sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes it's something we might interpret as a flaw or less than ideal. And the reality is we're just looking at it. It's not an emotion process, it's a logic process. And that's how we can figure it out and move forward. So that's my thoughts on that one.
I love that you say it's not pretty sometimes when we get to look at that. And I think what scares most of us is, especially as we live in a world that's all about face and saving face, that's a scary place to go. In piggybacking off of what Kurt said, this is why it's valuable to have a confidant, to have a buddy, to have a coach, to have somebody who's watching your swing. And so thank you, gentlemen, both of you. I respect greatly. I appreciate you spending time with us today. If you love what you got to see here today, just chat in. Thanks to Jamie and Kurt and investing their time today. Also investing more time in sharing a few freebies. I will put in an email a link to those freebies in case for whatever reason technologically that passed on to the next one before you got that one. That's completely fine. I'll make sure I hook you up. There'll also be a replay to the video here as well, so you can really dive deep into this. I appreciate you sharing your time with us here today once again. Stay tuned for more wonderful video podcasts from great presenters, as well as the 5-minute coaching strategy coming up in a couple weeks. And gentlemen, thank you so much once again. Have a phenomenal afternoon, have a phenomenal week, and go out there and take some action. Thank you and good night.